Hello everyone and welcome to my video on user experience design. My name is Stephen Cox, a student at Gwinnett Tech, and I want to first start out with the definition of what is UX design. A user experience designer, or UX designer, is a designer that specializes in enhancing user satisfaction of a product or process by improving the usability, accessibility, and pleasure provided with the interaction. One designer sums up his job with this: "It's my job to be inside a user's brain. I need to look at design from the mind space of a user, actually lots of users, and squash potential problems or confusion." The purpose of this short video will be to give an overview that covers the core principles of UX design and the important role that UX plays, particularly in product development. Let's start off with talking about some of the different careers in user experience. While smaller organizations will tend to have only one or two UX designers that cover all the needs, more developed organizations that are larger with more resources will divide the UX responsibility into two or more roles. Some of these can be one of the following. The first is UX research. The purpose of the researchers is to provide broader insight into user behavior, offering feedback throughout the development process. Next is the usability analyst. They use this research to identify user problems and evaluate the successes. Analysts provide insights that can substantially improve the experience. The information architect. He focuses on how the information is presented and optimizing screen real estate. They typically provide wireframes and process diagrams to the designers. And finally, we have the interactive and visual designers. Next, we'll look at some of the common principles of UX design that I picked up on throughout the research. First off is learnability. Your product should be intuitive enough that users will be able to pick it up quickly. If each step is not clearly defined or there are multiple options, be sure to provide adequate tooltips or description text. Next is clarity. This is closely related to the last principle, but clarity has to do with information architecture and how elements are arranged on the page. This includes the common visual design principles such as good contrast, a definite hierarchy of elements, and good typography. Next is the efficiency. Efficiency in product design is essentially the amount of steps to get through a given process flow and the amount of time for each step. This is where QA engineers and usability testing is essential to find any bugs or hangups preventing an ideal experience for the users. Next is simplicity. Simplicity is very closely related to clarity in that you want to reduce clutter as much as possible to prevent confusion. However, the challenge lies in balancing the amount of information to present for power users versus first-time users. Oftentimes, the power user doesn't mind a whole lot of options up front because it saves time for him, but a novice user could be completely overwhelmed, or worse yet, a prospective client will be put off and not even try the software to begin with. Feedback. Great feedback is tricky to provide a user without going overboard, but the most important thing is to remember that great UX is about communication. Similar to a marketing profession in that respect, UX is creating a dialogue with the goal of being to help them best do what they want to do. For example, something as simple as adding a loading graphic in between screens with long delays can vastly improve the experience, as without this crucial feedback, a user may think the program is frozen or cause it to crash. Next is context. Once again, this principle goes back to adequately using the user research. It's paramount for a designer to completely understand the ins and outs of the user's life so that they can have appropriate context where the product fits into their daily lives. After all, if a product isn't useful for the people that need it, what's the point? And finally, delight. This final principle can be considered the most important of all, and that is that good UX is a delight to use. If the design team is able to capture a great experience, the execution will be so smooth that the user finds performing actions like a second nature. In fact, one designer states, "Our job as UX professionals is to be so successful that nobody talks about us." Now I'm going to close with a few benefits for your company by investing in UX. The first is improved product performance. With a streamlined and well thought out user interface, there will be less user errors and it'll be easier to learn your software. Next is increased exposure. Bad user interfaces don't tend to attract a lot of users, but if you put in the correct amount of research and testing into your UX, you will have increased user attraction and user retention to your product, and it will continue to grow. Next is better credibility. People tend to trust a good UX that they can understand and that is clear with what they are asking the user to do, or why the user needs to provide a certain piece of information. If this is clearly communicated in an effective and clean way, people are more likely to trust the product and be more satisfied. And finally, UX can reduce your resource cost. Planning for the UX in the front end usually results in quicker development, less support costs as the users will not need to put in as many tickets, and finally, reduced training costs as it will be easier to learn and require less man hours to train people on your software. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and have a great day.